The afternoon of March 15th started like any other Tuesday in Millbrook, Tennessee. Jennifer Hayes adjusted her stethoscope as she walked through the emergency room of Millbrook General Hospital, her sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum floor. At 28 years old, she had been working as an ER nurse for 6 years, and the rhythm of the job had become second nature to her. The familiar beeping of monitors, the hushed conversations between doctors, the controlled chaos of saving lives. This was her world. "Jennifer, we've got a cardiac case coming in 5 minutes," called out Dr. Raymond Fisher, the head of the emergency department. His gray hair was slightly disheveled, and his reading glasses hung from a chain around his neck. "Got it, Dr. Fisher. Bay 3 is ready," Jennifer responded, already moving toward the supply closet to double-check their equipment. The March sun streamed through the windows of the modest hospital, casting long shadows across the hallway. Millbrook was a town of barely 15,000 people, nestled in the rolling hills of central Tennessee, about 90 miles east of Nashville. Everyone knew everyone here. Jennifer had grown up in this town, graduated from Millbrook High School, and returned after nursing school in Memphis. Her parents, Robert and Diana Hayes, ran the local hardware store on Main Street, and her younger brother, Tyler, taught history at the same high school they'd both attended. As Jennifer prepared the examination bay, she glanced at her phone. A weather alert flashed across the screen. Severe thunderstorm warning for Davidson, Wilson, and Rutherford counties. Possibility of severe weather, including hail and damaging winds. She frowned slightly. Spring in Tennessee always brought unpredictable weather, but something about the darkening sky outside made her uneasy. "Looks nasty out there," commented Patricia Drummond, a veteran nurse who had worked at Millbrook General for over 20 years. She stood beside Jennifer, her arms crossed as she stared out the window. The sky had turned an eerie greenish-gray, and the wind was beginning to pick up, bending the trees outside at unnatural angles. "Yeah, it does," Jennifer agreed, tucking a strand of her light brown hair behind her ear. "Maybe we should—" The hospital's emergency alert system suddenly blared to life, cutting her off mid-sentence. The automated voice was calm but urgent. "Tornado warning. This is not a drill. All personnel and patients should immediately move to designated shelter areas. Tornado warning in effect for Millbrook and surrounding areas." Jennifer's heart rate spiked immediately. She'd been through tornado drills countless times, but this was real. Dr. Fisher's voice boomed across the emergency room. "Everyone, shelter protocol now. Get the patients to the basement. Move quickly, but safely." The next 15 minutes were a blur of controlled urgency. Jennifer and her colleagues worked systematically to transport patients, some on gurneys, others in wheelchairs, a few walking with assistance, down to the hospital's basement shelter. The building was old but sturdy, built in the 1960s with a reinforced basement specifically designed as a tornado shelter. "I've got Mrs. Peterson," Jennifer called out, helping an elderly woman with a broken hip onto a stretcher. "Patricia, can you grab her IV stand?" "Already on it," Patricia responded, maneuvering the equipment alongside the gurney as they headed toward the stairwell. Outside, the sky had turned nearly black. The wind howled like a living thing, and hail began pounding against the windows with sharp, violent cracks. Jennifer could hear car alarms going off in the parking lot, their shrill warnings barely audible over the roar of the approaching storm. As they descended the stairs, the lights flickered once, twice, then held. The backup generators hummed to life automatically. In the basement, approximately 40 people, patients, staff, and a few visitors who'd been caught in the hospital, huddled together in the designated shelter area. The space was cramped but solid, with reinforced concrete walls and no windows. "Is everyone accounted for?" Dr. Fisher asked, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter. He held a clipboard, checking off names as staff members called out confirmations. "All ER patients present," Jennifer confirmed, her hand resting reassuringly on Mrs. Peterson's shoulder. "Surgical ward clear," another nurse reported. "Maternity." The voice of Linda Chambers, the head obstetrics nurse, was tight with worry. "We have 2 patients in active labor upstairs. We couldn't move them safely." Dr. Amy Bradford stayed with them. A wave of fear rippled through the basement. Above them, the wind's roar intensified, sounding like a freight train bearing down on the building. Jennifer's hands trembled slightly, but she forced herself to remain calm. The patients were looking to the medical staff for reassurance, and she couldn't let them see her fear. The tornado hit Millbrook at 3:47 p.m. The sound was indescribable. A deafening combination of wind, breaking glass, splintering wood, and the groaning of metal being twisted and torn. The building shuddered violently. Someone screamed. A young child began crying. Jennifer instinctively moved toward the crying child, a 5-year-old boy named Christopher Walsh, who'd been in the ER for a minor asthma attack. "Hey, buddy, it's okay," Jennifer said softly, kneeling beside him and his terrified mother, Rebecca Walsh. "We're safe down here. The building is strong. Can you count with me? Let's count how many people are wearing blue scrubs." The distraction technique worked. Christopher began counting, his sobs subsiding as he focused on the task. Rebecca mouthed, "Thank you," to Jennifer, tears streaming down her face. Above them, the destruction continued. The sounds of shattering windows, collapsing walls, and debris striking the building created a nightmarish symphony. The lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness for a terrifying moment before emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Then, after what felt like an eternity but was actually only about 90 seconds, the roaring began to fade. The wind died down. An unnatural silence fell over the basement shelter, broken only by quiet sobbing and whispered prayers. Dr. Fisher was the first to speak. "Everyone stay put for now. We need to assess the situation before anyone goes upstairs. Jennifer, Patricia, come with me." Jennifer's legs felt unsteady as she stood, but she followed Dr. Fisher and Patricia toward the stairwell. The door was jammed, and it took all 3 of them pushing to force it open. When they finally emerged onto the first floor, Jennifer gasped. The hospital had been devastated. Windows were blown out, ceiling tiles hung precariously or had fallen completely, and water poured from broken pipes. Debris littered every surface, but the structure itself had held. The old building had withstood the tornado's fury. "Dr. Bradford!" Jennifer called out, her voice echoing through the damaged corridors. "Amy!" "Here!" a voice responded from the direction of the maternity ward. "We're okay! Both mothers are okay!" Relief flooded through Jennifer, but it was short-lived. Through the shattered windows, she could see the true extent of the destruction. Main Street, the heart of Millbrook, was unrecognizable. Buildings were reduced to rubble. Cars were overturned or completely gone. Power lines sprawled across the roads like deadly snakes. "Oh my God," Patricia whispered beside her. Dr. Fisher's face was pale. "We need to prepare for mass casualties. This is going to be bad." He was right. Over the next hour, injured people began arriving at the hospital, some brought by first responders, others dragging themselves through the debris. The tornado had carved a path nearly a mile wide directly through the center of Millbrook, destroying homes, businesses, and lives in its wake. Jennifer worked on autopilot, her training taking over as the flood of injured continued. A man with a 2x4 impaled through his shoulder. A teenage girl with severe lacerations across her face and arms. An elderly couple, both in shock, with multiple fractures. A young mother frantically searching for her 7-year-old daughter. "We need more supplies," Jennifer told Dr. Fisher during a brief moment between patients. "We're running low on gauze, sutures, and—" "I know," Dr. Fisher interrupted, running a hand through his hair. "I've called for emergency supplies from Nashville, but with the roads blocked, it could be hours before they arrive." It was then that Jennifer made a decision that would change everything. "My parents' hardware store," she said suddenly. "It's only 4 blocks from here. They keep first aid supplies, tarps, rope, flashlights, basic emergency equipment." "Jennifer, you can't go out there," Patricia protested. "It's too dangerous. There could be gas leaks, downed power lines, unstable buildings." "People are dying, Patricia," Jennifer said firmly. "I know Millbrook. I know every street, every building. I can make it there and back." She turned to Dr. Fisher. "Give me a list of what you need most urgently. I'll get what I can." "Doctor." Fisher studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Be careful. Take Kyle Brennan with you. He's security, and he knows basic first aid." 20 minutes later, Jennifer and Kyle, a former Army medic who worked as the hospital's night security guard, were picking their way through the devastated streets of Millbrook. The scene was apocalyptic. Houses that had stood for generations were reduced to foundations. Trees that had lined Main Street for 100 years were uprooted or snapped like matchsticks. Personal belongings, photographs, clothes, toys, furniture were scattered everywhere, creating a surreal landscape of shattered lives. "Watch the power lines," Kyle warned, pointing to a tangle of cables blocking their path. He was in his mid-30s, tall and muscular, with the alert, careful movements of someone trained to assess danger. They detoured around the hazard, climbing over piles of debris. Jennifer's heart clenched as she recognized pieces of her town in the wreckage. The sign from Molly's Diner, twisted and broken. The brick facade of the old movie theater reduced to rubble. Children's playground equipment from Central Park, scattered across what used to be the parking lot of the Baptist church. "Jennifer, we need to help." Kyle suddenly grabbed her arm, pointing toward a collapsed house. A section of the roof had caved in, and they could hear muffled cries for help coming from inside. Without hesitation, Jennifer changed course. "Hello? Can you hear me? Where are you? Help! Please, I'm trapped!" The voice was young, female, panicked. "We're coming!" Kyle called back. He began carefully removing debris from what appeared to be a bedroom window, testing each piece before pulling it away to avoid causing further collapse. Jennifer assisted, her hands soon covered in cuts and scrapes from the jagged wood and metal. After several tense minutes, they cleared enough debris to see inside. A teenage girl, maybe 16 years old, was pinned under a fallen beam, her face pale with shock and pain. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Jennifer asked, keeping her voice calm and professional as she assessed the situation. "Melissa. Melissa Grant," the girl whimpered. "My leg. I can't move my leg." "Melissa, I'm Jennifer. I'm a nurse, and this is Kyle. We're going to get you out, okay?" Jennifer squeezed through the opening they'd created, carefully making her way to the trapped teenager. The beam wasn't too heavy. Kyle could lift it, but Jennifer could see that Melissa's leg was severely injured, possibly broken in multiple places. Moving her without proper equipment could cause permanent damage. "Kyle, we need a backboard or something rigid to stabilize her leg before we move her," Jennifer said. Kyle looked around and spotted a solid wooden door that had been blown off its hinges, lying relatively intact nearby. This might work. Together, they carefully positioned the door, and Kyle lifted the beam while Jennifer supported Melissa's injured leg. The girl screamed in pain, but they managed to free her and secure her to the makeshift backboard using torn strips of fabric from curtains. "You're doing great, Melissa," Jennifer encouraged as they prepared to move her. "We're taking you to the hospital. You're going to be okay." As they carefully transported Melissa through the debris-strewn streets, Jennifer noticed other people emerging from damaged homes, some injured, others in shock, all desperately seeking help. The scope of the disaster was overwhelming. "We can't leave them," Jennifer said to Kyle, even though they both knew the hospital was already overwhelmed. "We'll come back," Kyle promised. "But first we get Melissa to safety and grab those supplies. Then we organize a proper rescue effort." They finally reached the hospital after what felt like hours, but was actually only about 20 minutes. Dr. Fisher immediately took Melissa into care, while Jennifer and Kyle, after only the briefest rest, continued toward the hardware store. When they arrived at Hayes Hardware, Jennifer's heart sank. The building was still standing, but barely. The front wall had partially collapsed, and the roof sagged dangerously. But through the damaged storefront, she could see shelves still intact, supplies that could save lives. "Mom? Dad?" Jennifer called out, praying they hadn't been in the store when the tornado hit. She knew they usually closed early on Tuesdays, but she couldn't be sure. Silence answered her. She and Kyle carefully entered the damaged building, testing each step to ensure the floor would hold their weight. The interior was a disaster. Merchandise thrown everywhere, shelves toppled. But Jennifer knew where her parents kept the emergency supplies. "Here," she said, locating the medical supply section. Boxes of gauze, antiseptic, bandages, pain relievers, antibiotics from the pet supply section that could work in a pinch. They grabbed everything they could carry. As they were loading supplies into a salvaged shopping cart, Jennifer heard voices outside. She emerged to find a small group of people gathered. Neighbors, friends, people she'd known her whole life. "Jennifer!" called out Michael Preston, who owned the gas station on Route 12. His face was bruised, and his left arm was in a makeshift sling. "Thank God you're okay. We heard the hospital is the only building with power and working facilities." "It is," Jennifer confirmed, "but we're overwhelmed. We need help organizing rescue efforts, setting up a triage system for the injured." "We'll help," said another voice. Carla Foster, a retired teacher, stepped forward. Despite being in her 70s, her eyes were sharp and determined. "Just tell us what to do." Over the next hours, as daylight faded and emergency crews from surrounding counties began arriving, Jennifer found herself at the center of an impromptu community rescue operation. She coordinated teams to search damaged buildings, established a triage station at the hospital entrance to assess injuries before people entered, and worked alongside Dr. Fisher to treat an endless stream of patients. She didn't stop to eat, barely paused to drink water, and certainly didn't take time to check on her own home or family, though she'd received a text confirming her parents and brother were safe at her uncle's house outside town. At one point, around 8 p.m., Patricia pulled her aside. "Jennifer, you need to rest. You've been going non-stop for over 5 hours." "I'm fine," Jennifer insisted, though her hands were shaking with exhaustion, and her voice was hoarse from calling out instructions and reassurances all afternoon. "You're not fine. You're running on adrenaline," Patricia said firmly. And when that wears off, a crash interrupted them. Part of the hospital's already damaged ceiling gave way in the East Wing, sending staff and patients scrambling. Without thinking, Jennifer ran toward the sound. A support beam had fallen, trapping 2 people. One of them just a child. "Someone help!" a woman screamed. "My daughter! Please, someone help my daughter!" Jennifer reached them first. An 8-year-old girl with dark pigtails was pinned under the debris, her mother frantic beside her. The little girl's name tag from her school backpack read, "Emma Mitchell." "I've got her," Jennifer said, assessing the situation quickly. The beam was heavy, but hadn't fully crushed the child. There was maybe 6 inches of clearance. "I need help lifting this, now!" Kyle appeared, along with 2 firefighters who had just arrived from Nashville. Together, they lifted the beam while Jennifer carefully pulled Emma free. The girl was unconscious, her breathing shallow. "She's in shock," Jennifer said, immediately beginning assessment. "Weak pulse, possible internal injuries, definitely concussed. We need to get her to surgery now." Dr. Fisher and his team rushed Emma into the operating room while Jennifer stayed with the mother, holding her as she sobbed. "She's in the best hands," Jennifer assured her, though she knew the next few hours would be critical. The night wore on. More injured arrived. More lives hung in the balance. Jennifer moved from patient to patient, her training and determination overriding her exhaustion. She sutured wounds, set broken bones, held hands of the dying, and whispered encouragement to the terrified. At some point during the night, she caught a glimpse of herself in a broken mirror. Her scrubs were torn and blood-stained. Her hair had come loose from its ponytail, and her face was smudged with dirt and exhaustion. She barely recognized herself. By dawn, the worst of the immediate crisis had passed. Emergency medical teams from across Tennessee had arrived, bringing supplies, equipment, and much-needed relief staff. The official casualty count stood at 17 dead and over 200 injured, though those numbers would rise as search teams continued working through the rubble. Jennifer finally allowed herself to step outside as the sun rose over devastated Millbrook. The air smelled of smoke, wet wood, and that peculiar metallic scent that follows destruction. In the growing light, the true scope of the disaster became even more apparent. Entire neighborhoods were gone. The town she'd grown up in, loved and called home, was forever changed. "Jennifer Hayes?" A voice called from behind her. She turned to find a woman in her early 30s with a notebook and press badge from the Nashville Tribune. "I'm Amanda Reynolds. I've been documenting the rescue efforts, and everyone I talk to mentions your name. They say you saved dozens of lives yesterday." "I'm just a nurse doing my job," Jennifer said, suddenly uncomfortable with the attention. "There are hundreds of people here doing the same thing." "I've been covering disasters for 8 years," Amanda said softly. "What you did yesterday? Coordinating rescue efforts, treating patients non-stop, risking your life to save that little girl. That's not just doing your job. That's heroism." Jennifer shook her head, tears suddenly threatening to fall. 17 people died, Amanda. 17. I couldn't save them. I couldn't. "But you saved so many others," Amanda interrupted gently. "Emma Mitchell is alive because of you. Melissa Grant will walk again because you got her out safely. The dozens of people you treated, the rescue efforts you organized, you made a difference when it mattered most." As Amanda walked away to interview other rescue workers, Jennifer let herself cry for the first time since the tornado hit. She cried for the people who died, for the town that was destroyed, for the overwhelming exhaustion and trauma of the past 18 hours. But even as she cried, she knew her work wasn't finished. The immediate crisis might be over, but the long, difficult road to recovery was just beginning. What Jennifer didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that her story was just beginning to spread beyond Millbrook's devastated borders. Amanda Reynolds' article would be picked up by national news outlets. Videos taken by survivors and first responders showing Jennifer coordinating rescue efforts would go viral on social media. And far away in Nashville, someone very important would read about the young nurse who refused to stop saving lives, even as her own world fell apart. But for now, Jennifer simply wiped her tears, straightened her shoulders, and walked back into the hospital. There were still patients who needed her, and that was all that mattered. 3 weeks after the tornado, Millbrook was still struggling to find its footing. Federal emergency management teams had set up temporary housing in the form of trailer parks on the outskirts of town. The National Guard maintained a presence, helping with security and distribution of supplies. But for the residents who'd lost everything, the initial wave of media attention and charitable donations was beginning to fade, replaced by the grinding reality of rebuilding. Jennifer stood in front of what used to be her apartment building on Maple Street. The three-story structure had been completely destroyed. Only the foundation remained, along with scattered debris that might have once been her possessions. Her entire life had been in that building. Photographs of her family, her grandmother's quilt, the engagement ring from her ex-fiancé that she'd kept despite the failed relationship, her nursing school diploma. All of it, gone. "Still hard to believe, isn't it?" said a voice beside her. Daniel Cooper, her neighbor from the apartment next door, stood with his hands in his pockets, staring at the same scene. He was a mechanic at Turner's Auto Shop, or rather, he had been. The shop was gone, too. "Yeah," Jennifer replied softly. "I keep thinking I'll wake up and it'll all have been a nightmare." Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "My daughter's 5th birthday was supposed to be next week. All her presents were in our apartment. Her favorite stuffed rabbit that she's had since she was born. Everything." Jennifer reached out and squeezed his shoulder. "We'll get through this. The community center is collecting donated toys. I'll make sure she gets something special." "Thanks, Jennifer. You're always thinking of others." Daniel managed a weak smile. "You doing okay? I mean, really okay? I heard you've been working double shifts at the hospital." "Someone has to," Jennifer said, though the exhaustion in her voice betrayed her. The truth was, she'd been working herself to the point of collapse, taking every shift available, volunteering for every emergency call, anything to avoid facing the reality of her own losses. She currently stayed in one of the emergency trailers provided by FEMA, a cramped space she shared with Patricia Drummond, whose house had also been destroyed. The trailer had 2 small bedrooms, a tiny bathroom, and a kitchenette. It was functional, but depressing, a constant reminder of everything they'd lost. Jennifer's phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "Sweetie, your father and I would love for you to come for dinner tonight. You need to eat properly. Love you." She texted back a quick acceptance, though the thought of food made her stomach turn. She hadn't had much appetite since the tornado. When she did eat, it was usually just granola bars or whatever was available at the hospital cafeteria. As she walked toward Main Street, or what remained of it, Jennifer saw signs of slow progress. Crews were clearing debris. A few businesses had set up temporary locations in undamaged buildings on the outskirts of town. The elementary school, which had been partially destroyed, was using the high school's gym for classes. Life was attempting to continue, but everything felt fragile, temporary, like it could all fall apart again at any moment. "Jennifer! Jennifer Hayes!" A teenage girl ran up to her, slightly out of breath. It was Melissa Grant, the girl Jennifer had pulled from the collapsed house on the day of the tornado. She was on crutches, her left leg in a cast, but she was smiling. "Melissa, you're looking good," Jennifer said, genuinely pleased to see her up and moving. "My doctor says I'm healing better than expected. I might be off crutches in 6 weeks instead of 8. Melissa's enthusiasm was infectious. "I wanted to thank you again. My parents wanted to give you something, but we lost pretty much everything in the tornado, so seeing you healthy and walking is thanks enough," Jennifer assured her. "How's your family doing?" Melissa's smile faltered slightly. "We're staying with my aunt in Murfreesboro. My dad lost his job because the company he worked for got destroyed. Mom's trying to find work, but it's hard. They're talking about maybe not coming back to Millbrook, starting over somewhere else." Jennifer's heart sank. She'd heard similar stories from dozens of families. The tornado hadn't just destroyed buildings, it was destroying the community itself as people were forced to relocate, to find work elsewhere, to start over in places where the ground didn't feel like it might swallow them whole at any moment. "I hope you stay," Jennifer said. "Millbrook needs people like your family." "I hope so too," Melissa said. "This is home, you know. I don't want to lose that too." After saying goodbye to Melissa, Jennifer continued her walk. She passed the site where Molly's diner had stood. Molly herself, a woman in her 60s who'd run the restaurant for 30 years, was there sorting through rubble, her face set in grim determination. "Find anything salvageable?" Jennifer asked. Molly looked up, her expression softening when she saw Jennifer. "A few pots and pans, some dishes, not much else." She straightened, brushing dirt from her jeans. "But I'm not giving up. I'm going to rebuild. It'll take time, and I'll probably be serving food from a food truck for a while. But I'm not letting a tornado beat me." "That's the spirit," Jennifer said, admiring the woman's determination, even as she felt her own reserves of strength depleting. "You should take your own advice, honey," Molly said gently. "I've seen you around town. You look exhausted. You can't pour from an empty cup." Everyone kept telling her that. Patricia, her parents, Dr. Fisher. But they didn't understand. When she stopped moving, stopped working, stopped helping others, she had to face the enormous emptiness of her own situation. No home, no belongings, savings depleted from buying new essentials, and an overwhelming sense of loss that threatened to drown her if she let it. That evening, Jennifer sat at her parents' dining table in their temporary apartment. Her brother, Tyler, was there too, along with his wife, Rachel, and their 2-year-old son, Owen. The Hayes family had been lucky. Their home had sustained damage, but remained standing, though they'd had to move out temporarily while repairs were made. "Jennifer, you've lost weight," her mother said with concern, loading her plate with pot roast, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. Diana Hayes was a short, sturdy woman in her late 50s, with Jennifer's same light brown hair, now graying at the temples. "I'm fine, Mom," Jennifer said automatically, though the worried looks exchanged between her family members suggested they didn't believe her. "You're not fine," her father Robert said bluntly. He was a no-nonsense man with weathered hands from years of manual labor. "You're working yourself to death." "Dad, people need help. The hospital is still dealing with tornado-related injuries, plus all the regular medical issues that don't stop just because there was a disaster. And you can't help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion," Tyler interjected. "Sis, we're worried about you. You've been through a trauma too. You lost everything. When are you going to let yourself process that?" Jennifer set down her fork, her appetite completely gone. "I can't, Tyler. If I stop, if I let myself feel everything, I don't know if I'll be able to start again. Right now, people need me to be strong. So that's what I have to be." Rachel, who worked as a counselor at the community center, leaned forward. "Jennifer, what you're describing is avoidance. It's a common trauma response, but it's not sustainable. You need to talk to someone, process what you've been through. The community center is offering free counseling sessions for tornado survivors." "I don't have time for counseling," Jennifer said, standing abruptly. "I'm sorry, but I need to go. I have an early shift tomorrow." "Jennifer, wait!" her mother started, but Jennifer was already grabbing her jacket and heading for the door. Outside, she leaned against her borrowed car, a donated vehicle from a church in Nashville, and fought back tears. Why couldn't her family understand? She wasn't ready to fall apart. Maybe she never would be. Maybe if she just kept moving forward, kept helping others, eventually the pain would fade on its own. The drive back to her FEMA trailer took her past the hospital. On impulse, Jennifer pulled into the parking lot. It was 8 p.m. She wasn't scheduled to work, but there was always something that needed doing. She found Dr. Fisher in his office, surrounded by paperwork and looking as exhausted as she felt. He glanced up when she knocked. "Jennifer?" You're not on the schedule tonight. I know. I thought I could help with anything that needs doing. Restocking supplies, checking on patients, whatever you need. Dr. Fisher studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Sit down, Jennifer. Dr. Fisher, I'm really okay to... That's an order, not a request. Sit. Jennifer sat, feeling like a child called to the principal's office. You've been an incredible asset to this hospital. Dr. Fisher began, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes. Your work during and after the tornado was nothing short of extraordinary. But Jennifer, I'm concerned about you. Everyone is. I'm fine, Jennifer insisted, the automatic response wearing thin even to her own ears. You're not fine. You're exhibiting classic signs of PTSD and burnout. You work excessive hours, you're withdrawn, you've lost weight, and according to Patricia, you have nightmares every night. Jennifer felt her cheeks flush. Patricia had no right to. Patricia cares about you. We all do. Dr. Fisher's expression softened. Jennifer, I'm going to mandate that you take a week off, effective immediately. What? No. Dr. Fisher, you can't. The hospital needs... The hospital will manage. And frankly, we need you healthy more than we need you exhausted. He held up a hand to stop her protests. This isn't a punishment. It's necessary. You've been through a severe trauma. You lost your home, your belongings, everything. You spent 18 hours straight saving lives while your world fell apart around you. No one can sustain that kind of stress indefinitely. Jennifer felt tears threatening again. If I stop working, what am I supposed to do? Sit in that depressing trailer and think about everything I've lost? That's not healing, Dr. Fisher. That's torture. Then don't sit in the trailer. Visit friends, spend time with your family, go to counseling, take walks, let yourself grieve. Dr. Fisher's voice was kind but firm. Jennifer, you can't outrun trauma. Trust me, I've tried. It always catches up eventually. Better to face it on your terms than wait until it breaks you. Jennifer left the hospital feeling untethered and lost. A week off. What was she supposed to do with a week off? The thought of that much unstructured time, that much space for her thoughts and feelings to catch up with her, was terrifying. She drove aimlessly for a while, eventually finding herself at the edge of town near the lake. The old fishing pier had survived the tornado largely intact, and she parked and walked out onto the weathered boards. The water was calm, reflecting the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Her phone rang. It was Amanda Reynolds, the journalist who'd interviewed her after the tornado. "Hi, Amanda," Jennifer answered, surprised. "Jennifer, I'm glad I caught you. I wanted to let you know that the article I wrote about you and the other rescue workers has gotten significant attention. Several news outlets want to do follow-up stories. Would you be willing to do some interviews?" I don't know. I'm not really comfortable with the attention. I understand. But Jennifer, your story is inspiring people. In a time when everything feels dark and hopeless, you're a reminder of human resilience and compassion. That matters. After they hung up, Jennifer sat on the pier for a long time, watching the water and thinking about Amanda's words. Inspiring. The idea felt foreign. She didn't feel inspiring. She felt empty, exhausted, and barely holding herself together. A text came through from an unknown number. "Hi, Jennifer. This is Emma Mitchell's mom. I know you probably don't remember us from the hospital, but I wanted you to know Emma is doing great. The doctors say she'll make a full recovery. Thank you for saving my daughter's life. You gave us back our future. God bless you." Jennifer read the text 3 times, feeling something crack open inside her chest. Emma Mitchell, the 8-year-old who'd been trapped under debris when the ceiling collapsed. Jennifer hadn't even thought about her in days. too caught up in her own spiral of exhaustion and avoidance. More texts followed over the next hour. People she'd helped, thanking her. Families expressing gratitude. Community members offering support. It was overwhelming and humbling, and somehow made everything worse. Because how could she accept their thanks when she felt so broken inside? Finally, around midnight, Jennifer drove back to the FEMA trailer. Patricia was still awake, reading a book in the small living area. "Hey," Patricia said gently. "Want some tea?" "Dr. Fisher mandated I take a week off," Jennifer said, collapsing onto the couch. "Good. You need it. I don't know how to not work, Patricia. I don't know how to just be." Patricia set down her book and moved to sit beside Jennifer. "Then maybe it's time to learn. You've spent 3 weeks taking care of everyone else. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do. We all do sometimes. That's not weakness, Jennifer. That's being human." Patricia took Jennifer's hand. "You've been my hero these past weeks. You've been everyone's hero. But heroes need rest, too. They need to heal. You can't save the world if you're falling apart." That night, for the first time since the tornado, Jennifer let herself really cry. Not the brief tears she'd allowed herself on occasion, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Patricia held her, saying nothing, just being present as Jennifer finally began to process the overwhelming grief and trauma she'd been running from. It was the first step, small, painful, but necessary. Jennifer didn't know it yet, but her story was spreading far beyond Millbrook. People across Tennessee were talking about the nurse who became a hero. Local news stations had picked up Amanda's article. Social media posts about her rescue efforts were being shared thousands of times. And in Nashville, in a beautiful home studio, Reba McEntire was reading one of those articles. Her heart moved by the story of a young woman who'd lost everything but still found the strength to save others. The country music legend was beginning to form an idea, something special, something that could make a real difference. But Jennifer knew none of this yet. Right now, she was just trying to get through each day, learning slowly how to put one foot in front of the other without the distraction of constant work, learning how to be broken and still believe that healing might be possible, learning, for the first time in her life, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be vulnerable enough to ask for help. Nashville, Tennessee, 6 weeks after the tornado, was alive with the energy of spring. The city's music scene never slept, with honky-tonks on Broadway pumping out live country music from morning until the early hours. But in a quieter neighborhood, in a home studio filled with guitars, awards, and photographs spanning a legendary career, Reba McEntire sat with her phone, scrolling through stories about Millbrook's recovery. "You're still reading about that tornado," observed Justin Carter, Reba's longtime tour manager and friend. He'd stopped by to discuss upcoming tour dates, but he could see her attention was elsewhere. "I can't stop thinking about this one story," Reba said, holding up her phone to show him. On the screen was a photo of Jennifer Hayes, taken on the day of the tornado. Her scrubs were torn and stained, her face exhausted but determined, as she helped load a patient into an ambulance. The caption read, "Local nurse Jennifer Hayes, Millbrook's unsung hero. I tway den." "The nurse who coordinated rescue efforts," Justin said, nodding. He'd seen Reba reading articles about Jennifer for days now. She did incredible work. She lost everything, Justin. Her home, her belongings, her savings, and she's still working double shifts at the hospital, still helping her community rebuild. Reba's voice was thick with emotion. "I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. I know what it's like when disaster strikes and everyone has to pull together. This girl, She's 28 years old. She's carrying her whole town on her shoulders. Justin recognized that look in Reba's eyes. After 25 years of working with her, he knew when she was planning something. "What are you thinking?" "You remember the Nashville Hearts Benefit concert coming up?" Reba asked. The benefit, scheduled for late April, was an annual event raising money for various Tennessee charities. This year, the proceeds were designated for tornado relief efforts. "Of course, you're headlining. I want to do something special. Something for Jennifer Hayes and for Millbrook." Reba stood, pacing her studio as ideas formed. This girl has become a symbol of resilience for that town, but nobody's actually helping her. She's helping everyone else. "What did you have in mind?" Over the next hour, Reba outlined her idea. It was ambitious. It would require coordination with multiple organizations, and it absolutely had to be kept secret. Justin made notes, occasionally interjecting with logistical concerns. But he could see Reba was determined. "I'll need to make some calls," Justin said finally. "The Tennessee Disaster Relief Fund, the Home Builders Association, some of your connections in the community. Do whatever it takes," Reba said firmly. That girl gave everything for her town. It's time someone gave back to her. Meanwhile, back in Millbrook, Jennifer was struggling through her mandated week off. Well, it had been 2 weeks now. Dr. Fisher had extended it after she'd finally started counseling sessions with Rachel's colleague, a trauma therapist named Dr. Gregory Wallace. The counseling was harder than Jennifer had anticipated. Dr. Wallace, a gentle man in his 50s with kind eyes and an unshakable patience, had a way of asking questions that cut through her defenses. "Tell me about the moment you realized your apartment was gone," he'd asked during their second session. Jennifer had tried to give a clinical, factual account, but Dr. Wallace had stopped her. "I don't want the nurse's report, Jennifer. I want to know how you felt." How had she felt? Devastated, unmoored, like everything that defined her existence had been erased in 90 seconds. But she'd been so busy helping others that she hadn't let herself really feel those emotions. "I felt like I disappeared," Jennifer had finally said. "Like without my things, my home, the life I'd built, I didn't know who I was anymore." It was a breakthrough, Dr. Wallace had told her. The beginning of real processing. Jennifer wasn't sure if she believed him, but she kept going to the sessions because she'd promised her family she would try. On a Thursday morning, Jennifer was at the community center helping sort donated clothes when Patricia rushed in, waving her phone. "Jennifer, you're not going to believe this." Patricia was breathless with excitement. "What? What happened?" "Amanda Reynolds just posted on social media. Reba McEntire read her article about you and the tornado, and apparently she wants to do something special at the Nashville Hearts Benefit concert." Jennifer's stomach dropped. "What? No. Patricia, that can't be right." But Patricia was already showing her the post. Amanda had written, "Exciting news! Country music legend Reba McEntire reached out to me about Jennifer Hayes and the Millbrook Tornado Heroes. Something special is being planned for the Nashville Hearts Benefit concert on April 25th. More details to come, but this is going to be incredible. Millbrook strong. Reba gives back." The post had already been shared hundreds of times. Comments poured in from people Jennifer had never met, praising her, calling her a hero, expressing excitement about whatever Reba had planned. "I need to sit down," Jennifer said, feeling dizzy. "This is amazing," Patricia continued, oblivious to Jennifer's distress. "Reba McEntire, do you know how much she could help Millbrook? The exposure alone—" "Patricia, stop." Jennifer's voice was sharper than intended. "I don't want this. I don't want attention. I just want to do my job and help my community recover." Patricia's excitement faltered. Jennifer, this is a good thing. Why are you upset? Because I'm not a hero. I'm just a nurse who did what needed to be done. I don't deserve special recognition. There were dozens of people who worked just as hard, who saved just as many lives. But you became the face of our recovery, Patricia said gently. Whether you wanted to or not, people connected with your story. Maybe this is your chance to do even more good. Jennifer spent the rest of the day trying to ignore her phone, which wouldn't stop buzzing with texts, calls, and social media notifications. Friends, acquaintances, even people she barely knew were reaching out to congratulate her, to express excitement, to ask if she knew what Reba had planned. That evening, as she was leaving the community center, a car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, revealing Justin Carter. "Jennifer Hayes?" he asked with a friendly smile. "Yes?" Jennifer replied cautiously. "I'm Justin Carter, Reba McEntire's tour manager. I was wondering if we could talk for a few minutes." Jennifer's first instinct was to say no, to walk away. But something in Justin's demeanor, professional but genuinely kind, made her pause. "I guess so." They sat at a picnic table outside the community center. Justin explained that Reba wanted to honor Jennifer and the other Millbrook rescue workers at the benefit concert, but she wanted to make sure Jennifer was comfortable with the attention first. "Reba knows what it's like to be thrust into the spotlight when you're not ready," Justin said. "She won't do anything that makes you uncomfortable, but she wants you to know that your story has inspired thousands of people. In a time when everything feels uncertain and scary, you reminded people of the power of human compassion." "I'm not inspiring," Jennifer said quietly. "I'm barely holding myself together. Most days I feel like I'm one crisis away from completely falling apart." "That's exactly what makes you inspiring," Justin replied. "You're human. You're struggling. But you're still showing up. You're still helping others even when you're hurting. That's real heroism. Not the Hollywood kind, but the everyday kind that actually matters." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. What does Reba want to do at the concert? She wants it to be a surprise, for you and for the audience. But I can tell you this much. She wants to honor not just you, but everyone in Millbrook who's been working to rebuild. And she wants to do something meaningful that will actually help your community, not just generate good publicity. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. Justin handed her a card with his contact information. Reba respects boundaries, but she also believes that sometimes we need to let people celebrate the good we do, even when it makes us uncomfortable. It gives others hope. After Justin left, Jennifer called her mother. Diana Hayes listened patiently as Jennifer explained the situation, her voice wavering between anxiety and confusion. "What should I do, Mom?" "Sweetheart, what does your heart tell you?" Jennifer thought about that. Her first instinct was still to say no, to avoid the attention. But she thought about Melissa Grant, about Emma Mitchell, about all the people in Millbrook who were still struggling to rebuild. If Reba's attention could bring resources to the community, did Jennifer have the right to refuse, just because it made her uncomfortable? I think I'm scared," Jennifer admitted. "What if I don't live up to what people expect? What if I let everyone down?" "Jennifer Rose Hayes," her mother said firmly, using her full name the way she did when she needed Jennifer to really listen. "You have never let anyone down in your entire life. You've given everything to help this community heal. If accepting recognition makes you uncomfortable, that's okay. But don't say no just because you don't think you deserve it. You do deserve it, honey. You deserve to be celebrated and supported and cared for, just like you've cared for everyone else." That night, Jennifer wrote an email to Justin Carter. She agreed to participate in whatever Reba had planned on 2 conditions. First, that other Millbrook rescue workers be included and recognized. Second, that any funds or resources raised go toward helping the entire community, not just her personally. Justin's response came within an hour. "Reba wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you for trusting us with this. You won't regret it." Over the next 3 weeks, preparations for the benefit concert proceeded in secret. Jennifer returned to work at the hospital, her time off having given her at least a small measure of renewed energy. Dr. Wallace had helped her develop coping strategies for the PTSD symptoms. The nightmares were less frequent, and she was learning to recognize when she was spiraling into avoidance behaviors. She noticed small improvements in Millbrook, too. More debris cleared, more buildings under reconstruction. The hardware store was being rebuilt, with Robert Hayes planning a grand reopening in June. Molly's Diner was operating from a food truck, serving her famous pot roast to construction workers and residents, keeping the community fed while she saved money for a permanent location. Life was slowly, painfully, returning to something resembling normal. Jennifer received a package one afternoon, a formal invitation to the Nashville Hearts Benefit concert, along with tickets for her parents, brother, and Patricia. The invitation requested that she arrive early for a sound check and to meet Reba personally. "I can't believe you're going to meet Reba McEntire," Patricia squealed when Jennifer showed her the invitation. "Do you know how many albums of hers I own? How many times I've seen her in concert?" "I'm nervous," Jennifer admitted. "What am I supposed to say to someone like that?" "Just be yourself." "You're amazing, Jennifer. She's going to love you." The night before the concert, Jennifer barely slept. She kept rehearsing potential conversations in her head, imagining all the ways she might embarrass herself. What did a small-town ER nurse have in common with a country music legend? The morning of April 25th dawned clear and warm. Jennifer put on the nicest dress she owned, one her mother had given her, since all her own clothes had been lost in the tornado. It was a simple navy blue dress, modest but elegant. She stood in front of the trailer's small mirror, barely recognizing the nervous woman staring back at her. "You can do this," she told her reflection. "It's just one night. You've survived worse." The drive to Nashville took about 90 minutes. Her family and Patricia followed in a separate car, giving Jennifer space to be nervous in peace. The Bridgestone Arena loomed large as she pulled into the designated parking area for special guests. Justin Carter met her at the entrance, his smile warm and welcoming. "Jennifer, so glad you made it. How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Jennifer admitted honestly. Justin laughed. "You and every other person who's ever met Reba for the first time. Come on, she's waiting backstage." The backstage area of the arena was controlled chaos. Technicians running cables, musicians doing sound checks, staff members rushing back and forth with clipboards. Justin led Jennifer through it all to a quieter area where several dressing rooms were located. He knocked on a door marked with a star and Reba's name. "She's here." "Come in," called a familiar voice, one Jennifer had heard countless times on the radio, but never in person. Justin opened the door, and there she was. Reba McEntire, dressed casually in jeans and a simple black top, her famous red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked up from the papers she'd been reviewing and smiled. A genuine, warm smile that immediately put Jennifer at ease. "Jennifer Hayes," Reba said, standing and walking over with her hand extended. "I am so honored to meet you." I'm the one who's honored," Jennifer stammered, shaking her hand. "I can't believe you wanted to meet me. I'm just a nurse who saved dozens of lives and inspired thousands more," Reba finished. "Jennifer, I grew up in Chalky, Oklahoma. Population barely over 1,000. I know what small-town life is like. I know what it means when disaster strikes and everyone has to pull together. What you did for Millbrook? That's not just anything. That's everything. They sat down, and Reba explained her plan for the evening. There would be a special segment during the concert dedicated to tornado relief. Several Millbrook rescue workers would be honored, including Dr. Fisher, Patricia, Kyle Brennan, and others. But Jennifer would be the focus because her story had resonated so widely. "I'm going to perform a song," Reba said. "It's called The Greatest Man I Never Knew. Do you know it?" Jennifer nodded. It was one of Reba's most emotional songs, about a daughter's relationship with her father, who never showed his feelings. "I'm adapting the lyrics slightly," Reba continued, "making it about unsung heroes, the people who sacrifice everything for others without asking for recognition. And then, Jennifer, I have a surprise for you. But I want it to be a real surprise, so I'm not going to tell you what it is ahead of time. Is that okay?" Jennifer felt her anxiety spike. I guess so?" Reba reached out and took Jennifer's hand. "I promise you, this is a good surprise. It's going to help you and your community in a meaningful way. Will you trust me?" Looking into Reba's sincere eyes, Jennifer found herself nodding. "Yes, I trust you." They talked for another 20 minutes. Not about the concert or the tornado, but about life. Reba told stories about growing up in Oklahoma, about her early days in Nashville struggling to break into the music industry. Jennifer found herself relaxing, sharing her own stories about Millbrook, about her family, about her love of nursing. "You remind me of myself at your age," Reba said. "That determination to help people, to make a difference. Don't ever lose that, Jennifer. But also remember to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup." By the time Jennifer joined her family in their special section near the stage, she felt less nervous and more curious about what the evening would bring. The arena was filling up, thousands of people coming together for a good cause. The concert began with opening acts, talented local musicians who warmed up the crowd. Then, as the lights dimmed and anticipation built, Reba McEntire took the stage to thunderous applause. She was magnetic, commanding the stage with the confidence of someone who'd been performing for decades. She sang her hits, told stories, made the audience laugh and cry. Jennifer watched in awe, temporarily forgetting that she had any role to play in the evening. Then, about an hour into the concert, Reba's demeanor changed. The upbeat music stopped, and she stood center stage with just a microphone and a single spotlight. "Tonight," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena, "I want to talk about heroes." The screen behind her lit up with images of the Millbrook tornado's aftermath. Gasps echoed through the arena as the audience saw the devastation. 6 weeks ago, an EF4 tornado tore through Millbrook, Tennessee, Reba continued. 17 people lost their lives. Hundreds more were injured. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. It was one of the worst natural disasters our state has seen in years. More images appeared. Emergency responders, damaged buildings, families sorting through rubble. But in the midst of that devastation, something beautiful happened. People came together. Neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers became friends. And ordinary people did extraordinary things. Reba's voice was thick with emotion. "Tonight, I want to honor some of those people." The spotlight shifted, and Dr. Fisher was invited onto the stage. Reba shook his hand and praised his leadership during the crisis. Patricia came next, along with Kyle Brennan and several other Millbrook rescue workers. Each received recognition, applause, and Reba's heartfelt thanks. Then Reba said, "But there's one person whose story touched my heart in a special way. A young nurse who worked for 18 hours straight saving lives, who coordinated rescue efforts while her own home was being destroyed, who has continued to serve her community selflessly, even as she deals with her own tremendous losses. Jennifer's heart began pounding as she realized what was happening. "Jennifer Hayes, would you please come up here?" The spotlight found her in the audience. Everyone around her was applauding, encouraging her to stand. Her mother squeezed her hand. "Go, sweetheart. You've got this." On shaking legs, Jennifer made her way to the stage. The arena felt impossibly large, the crowd's applause deafening. When she reached Reba, the country star pulled her into a warm hug. "You're doing great," Reba whispered in her ear. "Just breathe." Facing the audience, Jennifer was overwhelmed by the sea of faces, all looking at her with admiration and respect. Reba kept a supportive arm around her shoulders. "Jennifer, I read about everything you did during and after the tornado," Reba said. "You saved lives, organized rescue efforts, and became a symbol of hope for your community. But what really moved me was learning that you lost everything. Your home, your belongings, your savings. And yet, you never stopped helping others." Images of Jennifer from the day of the tornado appeared on the screen, working with patients, coordinating with first responders, pulling Emma Mitchell from the rubble. Jennifer barely recognized herself in those photos. "You gave everything for Millbrook," Reba continued. "Tonight, we want to give something back to you." The screen changed to show architectural drawings of a house, a beautiful, modest home with a front porch and a backyard. Jennifer Hayes, thanks to the generosity of the Tennessee Home Builders Association, donations from people across the state, and support from the Nashville community, we are giving you a fully furnished home in Millbrook, built on land donated by the city, completely debt-free. Jennifer couldn't process the words. A home? They were giving her a home? The audience erupted in applause. Jennifer felt tears streaming down her face as Reba held her steady. "But that's not all," Reba said. "We've also established the Millbrook Recovery Fund, which has already raised over $200,000 to help your community rebuild. Every penny will go directly to families and businesses affected by the tornado." Jennifer covered her face with her hands, sobbing openly now. It was too much, too generous, too overwhelming. Reba pulled her close, letting her cry. "You deserve this," Reba said softly, though her microphone picked it up. "You deserve to be cared for the way you've cared for others." When Jennifer finally composed herself enough to speak, her voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much." "You don't have to say anything," Reba replied. "Just keep being the amazing person you are. Keep helping your community heal. And know that you're not alone." Then Reba began to sing, her adapted version of the song about everyday heroes who sacrifice without seeking recognition. Her powerful voice filled the arena, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Jennifer stood beside her, still crying, still overwhelmed, but feeling something she hadn't felt since before the tornado. Hope. Real, tangible hope. That things could get better. That rebuilding was possible. That she didn't have to carry everything alone. When the song ended and the applause thundered through the arena, Reba hugged Jennifer one more time. "Go be with your family," she said. "Enjoy this moment. You've earned it." Jennifer returned to her seat, immediately surrounded by her parents, brother, and Patricia, all of them crying and hugging her. Around them, strangers reached out to touch her shoulder, to express their congratulations, to thank her for her service. The rest of the concert passed in a blur. Jennifer was still processing what had happened. A home, $200,000 for Millbrook, national recognition for the rescue workers. It felt surreal, like a dream she might wake up from at any moment. After the concert, Justin Carter guided Jennifer and her family backstage again. Reba was there, having changed into comfortable clothes, her stage makeup removed. "How are you doing?" she asked Jennifer with genuine concern. I don't even know," Jennifer admitted. "This is the most incredible thing anyone has ever done for me. For us. I don't know how to thank you. You already have. By being you." Reba handed her a folder. "This has all the information about your new home, the construction timeline, the land deed, everything. They're breaking ground next week, and it should be ready in about 3 months. 3 months. In 3 months, Jennifer would have a home again. A real home, not a FEMA trailer. Somewhere permanent, stable, hers." They talked for a while longer, exchanging contact information and promising to stay in touch. Reba made Jennifer promise to send updates on Millbrook's recovery and photos of the new house once it was complete. On the drive back to Millbrook, Jennifer sat in peaceful silence, looking out at the dark Tennessee landscape passing by. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts and calls from people who'd watched the concert on the live stream, from news outlets wanting interviews, from community members expressing their joy and gratitude. But Jennifer ignored it all for now. She just wanted to sit with this feeling, this strange, wonderful, overwhelming feeling of being seen, being valued, being cared for in return for all the care she'd given others. When they finally arrived back in Millbrook around midnight, Patricia pulled Jennifer into a tight hug. "I'm so happy for you. You deserve every bit of this." "We all deserve it," Jennifer corrected. "The money for the recovery fund, that's going to help so many people rebuild. That's what really matters." But as she lay in bed that night, Jennifer allowed herself to feel personal joy, too. She pictured the house from the architectural drawings, the kitchen where she could cook real meals, the bedroom with actual space, the front porch where she could sit on summer evenings. A home. Her home. For the first time since the tornado, Jennifer fell asleep without nightmares, dreaming instead of tomorrow, and all the tomorrows that would follow. Dreaming of healing, of rebuilding, of a future that suddenly seemed bright with possibility. Construction on Jennifer's house began on a warm Monday morning in early May. The lot was on Sycamore Street, in a neighborhood that had been completely destroyed by the tornado. Several other families were also rebuilding on their old properties, creating a sense of community renewal that felt symbolic and hopeful. Jennifer stood at the construction site with Thomas Daniels, the lead builder from the Tennessee Home Builders Association. He was a weathered man in his 50s, with calloused hands and a kind smile, who'd spent his entire career building homes across the state. "The foundation should be poured by end of week," Thomas explained, showing her the blueprints spread across a makeshift table. "Then we'll start framing. With the crew we've got, and all the donated materials, we're looking at 10 to 12 weeks total." "It's beautiful," Jennifer said, studying the plans. The house wasn't large, about 200 square feet, but it was perfect. 2 bedrooms, an open-concept kitchen and living room, a small office space, and that front porch she'd been dreaming about. "We've got volunteers coming from all over the state to help," Thomas added. "Some of them saw you on that concert with Reba McEntire. Others are just people who want to help Millbrook recover. You've become kind of a symbol around here." Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. Even weeks after the concert, she still struggled with being in the spotlight. But she was learning, slowly, to accept that her story had resonated with people in ways she couldn't control. "I'm grateful for everyone's help," she said sincerely. "Not just for me, but for everyone in Millbrook who's rebuilding." The recovery fund that Reba had announced was already making a significant impact. The initial $200,000 had grown to over $300,000 as donations continued pouring in. A committee had been formed to distribute the funds fairly, helping families repair damaged homes, supporting small businesses as they rebuilt, providing resources for those still displaced. Molly's Diner was one of the first to benefit. With a grant from the Recovery Fund and her own savings, Molly was able to begin reconstruction on her original location. She'd insisted on hiring local contractors and workers, many of whom had lost their own jobs when businesses closed after the tornado. "We rebuild together, or we don't rebuild at all," Molly had declared at a town hall meeting. Her words had become an unofficial motto for Millbrook's recovery efforts. Jennifer had returned to work at the hospital, but with better boundaries this time. She worked her scheduled shifts, took her days off seriously, and continued her counseling sessions with Dr. Wallace. The nightmares hadn't completely stopped, but they were less frequent and less intense. "You're making real progress," Dr. Wallace told her during a session in mid-May. "You're learning to process trauma rather than avoid it. That's not easy work." "It doesn't feel like progress sometimes," Jennifer admitted. "I still have days where I can barely function, where everything feels overwhelming. That's part of healing. It's not linear. You'll have good days and bad days, sometimes good weeks and bad weeks. What matters is that you're learning tools to cope, and you're not trying to carry everything alone anymore." That was true. Jennifer had been surprised by how much the community had rallied around her after the concert. People brought meals to her trailer, offered to help with errands, checked in regularly to make sure she was okay. It was overwhelming in its own way, but also deeply touching. One afternoon in late May, Jennifer was visiting the construction site. She tried to stop by every few days to see the progress when a familiar car pulled up. Amanda Reynolds, the journalist, emerged with a camera and notepad. "Jennifer, do you have a few minutes?" Amanda asked. "I'm doing a follow-up piece on Millbrook's recovery. People want to know how you're doing, how the town is doing." Jennifer agreed, and they walked through the partially completed house as they talked. The frame was up now, and you could really see the shape of the rooms. "Imagine what it would look like when finished. How does it feel, seeing your new home come together?" Amanda asked, taking photos. "Surreal," Jennifer admitted. "I still can't believe this is happening. Some mornings I wake up and think, I dreamed the whole concert, the house, everything. But it's real, and it's happening because of the courage and compassion you showed during the worst day of your life." Jennifer paused, running her hand along a wooden beam. "I've been thinking a lot about that day, about the choices I made, the things I did. I used to feel guilty, like I should have done more, saved more people, been better somehow. And now? Now, I'm learning that I did the best I could with what I had. That's all any of us can do. And I'm learning that accepting help doesn't make me weak. It makes me human." Amanda's article, published a week later, was picked up by several major publications. It painted a picture of Millbrook's ongoing recovery, the challenges still faced, but also the incredible resilience of the community. Jennifer's house became a symbol of that resilience, a tangible sign that rebuilding was possible. The article caught the attention of several celebrities and philanthropists, leading to additional donations to the Recovery Fund. A famous furniture company donated furnishings for Jennifer's house and for 10 other families rebuilding in Millbrook. A national home improvement chain provided materials for community projects. "This is incredible," Patricia said one evening, as she and Jennifer reviewed the growing list of donations and support. They were sitting on lawn chairs near the construction site, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Reba McEntire's tribute opened a floodgate. "It's not just about the money and resources," Jennifer reflected. "It's about feeling like we matter, like people beyond our little town care about what happens to us. That means something when you're trying to rebuild your entire life." In early June, Robert and Diana Hayes reopened their hardware store. The new building was modern and efficient. with better organization and layout than the old store. But they'd kept the original sign, weathered and damaged but carefully restored, as a reminder of their history and resilience. The grand reopening was a community celebration. Hundreds of people showed up, many bringing food for an impromptu potluck in the parking lot. Jennifer helped her parents cut the ribbon, feeling immense pride in what they'd accomplished. "To new beginnings," Robert said, raising a glass of sweet tea. "And to the strength of this community that refuses to stay down." The crowd cheered, and Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes. But they were happy tears this time, not tears of grief or trauma. Tyler approached her during the celebration, his son Owen toddling beside him. "How are you really doing, sis? Not the public face you show everyone. Really doing?" Jennifer considered the question honestly. "Better. Not perfect, not healed, but better. I have bad days still. Sometimes I hear wind or a loud noise, and I freeze, my heart racing. Sometimes I drive past where my apartment used to be, and I feel that loss all over again. But I also have good days. Days where I laugh, where I feel hope, where I believe in the future again. The ratio of good days to bad days is improving. That's something. That's everything," Tyler corrected, pulling her into a hug. "I'm proud of you." By mid-June, Jennifer's house was really taking shape. The roof was on, windows installed, siding nearly complete. Inside, walls were going up, electrical and plumbing systems being installed. Thomas Daniels gave her regular tours, explaining each phase of construction with obvious pride in his work. "This is going to be a solid home," he told her, "built to withstand another tornado if it ever comes to that. Reinforced structure, impact-resistant windows, proper storm shelter in the basement." "There's a basement?" Jennifer asked, surprised. It hadn't been in the original plans. "Added feature," Thomas said with a smile. "After everything that happened, some of the builders felt you should have proper storm protection. It's not huge, but it's reinforced concrete and steel. Safest room in the house." Jennifer felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "You've all been so generous. I don't know how I'll ever repay—" "You don't repay kindness," Thomas interrupted gently. "You pay it forward. Someday, when you're settled and stable, you'll have the opportunity to help someone else. That's how community works." One Saturday in late June, Reba McEntire made a surprise visit to Millbrook. She'd called ahead to let Jennifer know she was coming, but asked her to keep it quiet. She didn't want it to become a media circus. They met at the construction site, and Reba walked through the nearly completed house with genuine interest and excitement. She asked questions about the design choices, admired the craftsmanship, and seemed genuinely invested in Jennifer's happiness. "This is beautiful," Reba said, standing in what would be the living room. "You can already imagine making it a home." "I've been collecting things," Jennifer admitted. "Little items from thrift stores, donations from people, a lamp, some dishes, a bookshelf, building up what I lost piece by piece." They sat on the front porch. The structure was complete, though it still needed railings and finishing touches, and talked for over an hour. Reba shared stories from her career, talked about her own experiences with loss and rebuilding, offered advice on handling public attention. "The spotlight fades," Reba assured her. "Right now, you're a story people are interested in. But eventually, that'll pass, and you'll get to just be Jennifer Hayes again. The key is not letting the attention change who you are at your core." "I don't think there's any danger of that," Jennifer said with a slight smile. "This whole experience has been humbling. I'm the same person I was before the tornado. Maybe a little more aware of my own limitations, a little more willing to accept help, but still, fundamentally, me. That's good. Hold on to that." First, Reba paused, then added, "I also wanted to tell you that I've been invited to perform at the Millbrook Recovery Celebration in August. The town is planning a big event to mark the 5-month anniversary and showcase all the rebuilding that's happened." I said yes, but only if you're comfortable with it. Of course I am. Reba, you've done so much for this town. Having you perform would be incredible. Then it's settled. And Jennifer, I want you to sing with me. Jennifer nearly choked on her water. What? No! Reba, I can't sing. I mean, I sing in my car and in the shower, but I'm not a performer. I would embarrass both of us. Reba laughed, a warm, genuine laugh. I've heard you sing. Justin recorded your sound check before the benefit concert when you were warming up. You have a lovely voice. And I'm not asking you to perform a solo. Just one song, together. It would mean a lot to people. I'll think about it, Jennifer said, though her stomach was already churning with anxiety at the thought. That's all I ask. After Reba left, Jennifer sat on her unfinished porch for a long time, watching neighbors work on their own rebuilding projects, listening to the sounds of construction that had become the constant soundtrack of Millbrook's recovery. She thought about how much had changed in 4 months, how much she'd changed. She thought about the scared, exhausted woman who'd stood in front of her destroyed apartment building, feeling like she'd lost everything. That woman had been certain she'd never feel whole again, never feel at home again. But she'd been wrong. Home wasn't about the building or the things inside it. Home was about the people, the community, the connections that remained even when everything else was destroyed. Jennifer had never really lost her home. It had been there all along, in every hand that reached out to help, every kind word, every shared struggle and triumph. The house on Sycamore Street was just a building, but it represented something bigger: hope, resilience, community, and the unwavering truth that even in our darkest moments, we don't have to face them alone. Jennifer pulled out her phone and texted Reba, "I'll sing with you at the celebration. Terrified, but I'll do it." The response came almost immediately. "That's my girl. You're going to be amazing." The morning of August 15th dawned clear and warm, a perfect late summer day in Tennessee. Millbrook was barely recognizable from the devastated town it had been 5 months earlier. New buildings stood where rubble had been. Trees had been replanted along Main Street. Fresh paint and hope had transformed the landscape. Jennifer stood in her completed house, barely believing it was real. The furniture had been arranged, artwork hung on walls, kitchen stocked with dishes and cookware. Everything smelled new and clean and full of possibility. Patricia had stayed over the night before, Jennifer's first official sleepover in her new home. They'd drunk wine, eaten pizza, and talked late into the night about everything and nothing. "Your house is beautiful," Patricia said that morning, sipping coffee on the front porch. "But more than that, it's you. Every detail reflects who you are." It was true. Jennifer had been involved in every decision, from the paint colors to the layout of furniture. The office had been converted into a reading nook with built-in bookshelves. The guest room was decorated in soft blues and greens. The kitchen, her favorite room, had an island where she could prep meals while talking to guests. "I keep waiting to wake up," Jennifer admitted. "This whole year has felt like a surreal dream. The nightmare of the tornado, then the dream of recovery." "It's real," Patricia assured her. "You're home. Home." The word felt right now in a way it hadn't for months. This wasn't just a house or a building. It was her space, her sanctuary, her fresh start. The Millbrook Recovery Celebration was scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. in the newly rebuilt Central Park. The tornado had completely destroyed the old park, but the community had worked together to create something even better. Wider walking paths, a new playground with modern equipment, a beautiful gazebo for community events, and a memorial garden honoring those who died in the tornado. Jennifer spent the morning preparing, her nerves about singing with Reba growing with each passing hour. They'd rehearsed twice over the past week, a beautiful ballad about resilience and hope that Reba had written specifically for Millbrook. Jennifer's part was small, just harmonies and one verse, but it still felt terrifying. "You're going to be great," her mother assured her as she helped Jennifer choose an outfit, a flowing white sundress that felt appropriate for the occasion. "Just remember, everyone there loves you. They're rooting for you." By 3:30 p.m., Jennifer was at Central Park helping with last-minute preparations. The transformation was remarkable. Food vendors lined the perimeter, offering everything from barbecue to funnel cakes. Local bands were setting up to perform before Reba's headlining set. Children ran around the new playground, their laughter a sound that had been missing for too long. "Jennifer!" Dr. Fisher called out, waving her over. He looked healthier than he had in months, some of the stress finally lifting from his shoulders. "The hospital staff wants to take a photo with you before things get crazy." She posed for photos with her colleagues, with community leaders, with volunteers who'd helped with recovery efforts. Everyone wanted to share this moment, to document how far they'd come. Mayor Linda Peterson took the makeshift stage first, welcoming everyone and speaking about Millbrook's journey. 5 months ago, we faced unimaginable destruction. 17 of our neighbors lost their lives. Hundreds were injured. Our town was devastated. But we didn't give up. We came together, supported each other, and slowly, painfully, we rebuilt. The mayor's voice cracked with emotion. "Today isn't about forgetting what we lost. It's about honoring those we lost by showing that their community, their home, survived and thrives. It's about celebrating our resilience, our strength, and our future." The crowd applauded, many wiping away tears. Jennifer saw faces she recognized. Melissa Grant with her family, no longer on crutches. Emma Mitchell holding her mother's hand. Daniel Cooper with his daughter, who was now wearing a party dress and a huge smile. Michael Preston and Carla Foster and dozens of others who'd survived and rebuilt. Local bands performed, filling the park with music. Food was shared, stories exchanged, hugs given freely. It felt like the whole town had gathered to collectively exhale, to acknowledge what they'd endured and celebrate what they'd accomplished. As the sun began lowering toward the horizon, casting golden light across the park, Justin Carter found Jennifer backstage. "You ready? Reba's about to go on, and you'll join her for the third song." Jennifer's stomach flipped. "As ready as I'll ever be." Reba took the stage to thunderous applause. She was dressed beautifully but simply, letting her music and presence speak for themselves. She opened with an upbeat song that got everyone clapping and singing along, then transitioned to a heartfelt ballad that had the crowd swaying. Then she paused, looking out at the audience with visible emotion. "Millbrook, you've stolen my heart," she said. "Coming here 5 months ago was supposed to be about me helping you. But you've taught me so much about resilience, about community, about what really matters in life." She told the story of reading Amanda's article, of being moved by Jennifer's story, of wanting to do something meaningful. "Tonight, I want to perform a song I wrote specifically for this community. It's called We Rise Again, and I'm honored to be joined by someone very special. Jennifer Hayes, would you come out here?" Jennifer walked onto the stage on shaking legs, her heart pounding so hard she was sure the microphone would pick it up. But then Reba put an arm around her shoulders, grounding her, and the crowd's applause was warm and encouraging rather than intimidating. "You've got this," Reba whispered. Just feel the music. Let it move through you." The song began. A gentle, hopeful melody about falling down and finding the strength to stand back up, about storms passing and sun breaking through clouds, about community and connection being stronger than any disaster. Reba sang the first verse, her powerful voice filling the park. Then Jennifer joined in on the chorus, harmonizing, her own voice smaller, but true. She was surprised by how natural it felt, how the music carried her anxiety away. When her solo verse came, Jennifer closed her eyes and sang about her experience, about losing everything, about finding strength in unexpected places, about learning that home was people rather than places. Her voice wasn't perfect, but it was honest and heartfelt, and that was what mattered. The crowd was silent, listening intently. When Jennifer opened her eyes, she saw hundreds of faces looking back at her. Her neighbors, her friends, her community. They weren't judging her performance. They were connecting with the emotions, sharing in the experience. The final chorus was powerful, both voices blending together, rising toward a crescendo that felt triumphant and hopeful. When the last note faded, there was a moment of utter silence. Then the crowd erupted. Jennifer felt tears streaming down her face as people cheered and applauded. Reba pulled her into a tight hug. "See? I told you, you'd be amazing." "Thank you," Jennifer whispered, "for everything, for believing in me, for helping my town, for this moment." "It was my honor," Reba replied. After the performance, Jennifer was mobbed by well-wishers. People wanted to hug her, to thank her, to tell her what her story had meant to them. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. Emma Mitchell and her mother found her in the crowd. Emma threw her arms around Jennifer's waist. "You sing pretty," the 8-year-old declared. "Thank you, sweetheart. How are you doing?" "Good. The doctors say I'm all better now. And Mommy says we get to stay in Millbrook forever, because we got money from the fund to fix our house." Jennifer looked at Emma's mother, who nodded with tears in her eyes. "The recovery fund covered our repairs. We can stay. This is still home." Melissa Grant appeared next, introducing Jennifer to her parents. "We're staying too," Melissa said excitedly. "Dad found a new job, and we used some of the recovery money to rebuild. I start my senior year at Millbrook High in 2 weeks." Story after story, family after family, people sharing how the recovery fund had helped them, how the community support had made the difference between leaving and staying, between giving up and persevering. As the celebration continued into the evening, with fireworks planned for after dark, Jennifer found herself sitting on a park bench with Dr. Wallace, her therapist. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "This has been a big day." "Good, really good, actually." Jennifer watched the crowd, saw the joy and hope that had replaced the trauma and despair. "I've been thinking about what you said months ago, about trauma not being linear, about healing taking time. And I think I understand now. I'm not the same person I was before the tornado. That experience changed me permanently. But I'm learning that changed doesn't mean broken. I'm different, but I'm okay. Maybe even stronger than I was before." "That's a profound realization," Dr. Wallace said. "You've done incredible work, Jennifer. You should be proud of yourself." As darkness fell and the fireworks began, brilliant colors exploding against the night sky, Jennifer stood with her family, surrounded by her community, in a town that had died and been reborn. She thought about the journey that had led her here, from those terrifying moments in the hospital basement to this moment of joy and celebration. She thought about the people she'd lost, the 17 Millbrook residents who hadn't survived the tornado. Their names were engraved in the memorial garden. their memories honored in the community's determination to rebuild and thrive. She thought about the people she'd helped, the lives she'd saved, the difference she'd made in those critical hours and weeks. But mostly, she thought about tomorrow, about waking up in her new house, going to work at the hospital, continuing her counseling, living her life in this community she loved. About ordinary days and extraordinary connections, about resilience and hope, about the future that stretched ahead, full of possibility. Reba found her in the crowd as the fireworks finale began. "Thank you for trusting me," the country star said. "Thank you for letting me be part of your story. Thank you for seeing me." Jennifer replied, "For seeing all of us." As the final firework exploded, a massive golden burst that lit up the entire sky, the crowd cheered. Children laughed, couples embraced, friends celebrated. Millbrook was alive again, stronger and more connected than ever. Jennifer Hayes closed her eyes and made a silent promise to the universe, to her community, to herself. She would never take this for granted. She would never forget how quickly everything could change, how precious community was, how important it was to help each other through the storms. When she opened her eyes, Patricia was beside her, taking her hand. "You did good, kid. Real good." "We all did," Jennifer corrected. "Every single person here who refused to give up, who kept going when everything seemed hopeless. We all did this together." The celebration continued late into the night. Music played, food was shared, stories were told and retold. Children fell asleep in their parents' arms while adults talked about rebuilding plans, about dreams for the future, about hope. Jennifer stayed until the very end, not wanting to miss a single moment. When she finally drove home, to her home, her actual home on Sycamore Street, she felt a peace she hadn't known in months. She walked through her front door, turned on the lights in her beautiful new house, and just stood there for a moment, taking it all in. This was hers. This was real. This was the beginning of a new chapter. Before going to bed, Jennifer sat at her kitchen table and wrote a letter. Not to anyone in particular, just her thoughts, her gratitude, her reflections on the journey from March 15th to August 15th. She wrote about loss and love, about fear and courage, about community and connection. She wrote about the woman she'd been, scared and overwhelmed and convinced she'd lost everything. And she wrote about the woman she was becoming, stronger, wiser, more aware of both her limitations and her capabilities, more willing to ask for help, more comfortable with vulnerability, more grateful for every ordinary moment. She ended the letter with a simple truth. Home isn't a place. It's the people who stand beside you when the storms come, who help you rebuild when everything falls apart, who celebrate with you when hope returns. I've been home all along. I just didn't realize it until I lost everything else. Jennifer sealed the letter in an envelope and tucked it into a drawer, something she might read again someday when she needed to remember this feeling, this moment, this truth. Then she went to bed in her new house, in her new room, on her first night truly home. She fell asleep to the sound of distant crickets and the gentle whistle of wind through trees, sounds that no longer made her anxious, but rather reminded her that she'd survived, that she was here, that tomorrow would come, and she would be ready for it. The audience hadn't expected it when Reba McEntire took that stage 5 months ago and announced her plans to help a small-town nurse rebuild her life. But Reba had delivered something extraordinary. Not just a house or money or recognition, but a reminder that compassion and community could heal even the deepest wounds. Jennifer Hayes had become a symbol of resilience, but she was so much more than that. She was a nurse, a neighbor, a daughter, a friend. She was flawed and human and still healing, but she was home, and she was hopeful, and she was surrounded by love. And that, ultimately, was the greatest tribute of all.